Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new video. In today's video, we're going to be taking a look at the 2022 Senate elections for the first time in the year 2022. So this is the first Senate video I'll be making ever for the 2022 Senate elections where it will be officially election year. Now, there's still a lot that can change, and I'm going to say that, in every video for the next few months, but it's cool that we're now officially in an election year, and we're going to be able to start making these projections more accurately and more with more knowledge than we have been able to do before. So, before I get started, just some few announcements. Again, I usually try to fill you guys in on what's going on with the channel at the beginning of every video. So yeah, for this video, we're gonna be obviously looking at the Senate elections, but I've also got some stuff coming out. I'm going to talk about the Senate elections a lot more in these coming weeks. Stay tuned for that. By the way, I'm doing I'm not good at it, but I'm hinting at something. So I'll stay tuned because we're going to be talking a lot about the U.S. Senate with these next few weeks in January. And then as we get into February, I'll be focusing more on the gubernatorial elections, and I'll kind of start to alternate because we also got redistricting wrapping up, which I've been covering, especially on Twitter and on Substack. Go follow me there. I'm at UEP_YouTube on Twitter. I'm at UEP_YouTube on Instagram. And you can find my newsletter. Just type in uepyt.substack.com. That is uepyt.substack.com. So, yes, I think that is really it for my announcements, but yeah, I think we're going to hop right into it and start filling out these safe states. So there are some states that I think are very safe for the Democratic Party. I'm just going to fill them out right now. I've noticed that my Senate videos tend to go a little long because I think there's so much to discuss, and I'm just going to try to keep that to a minimum right here. We're just going to go through these states that should not be competitive. Iowa, for those you don't know, is not competitive because Chuck Grassley's running for re-election, and in 2016, Chuck Grassley won re-election in the state of Iowa by about 25%, and he only lost one county. This is Johnson County, obviously very Democratic county that Patty Judge ended up winning by about 19%. And so I think other than that, not too many questions to be asked here. Now, we're going to hop right into it with our 11 more competitive states. So I think I'm just going to do this in the least competitive to most competitive. So there are a few states that I just do not think are very competitive either way. Those states are states like Alaska, Florida, Ohio, and these states are all likely Republican. And so what that means is that the Republicans are probably going to win these races by in between 5 and 15%, and it also means that Republicans have in between an 80 to 95% chance of winning these races. Like, the Democrats have maybe, I think their best shot here is Ohio, but they've got maybe a 15% chance of winning that, and that's kind of generous. Alaska could get wonky. Alaska elections are always goofy because, ranked choice voting, there's a big third-party presence that, tends to make these elections very complicated, and, Alaska I could spend so much time talking about, but for now what you should know is that there's a primary going on between Lisa Murkowski and Kelly Tshibaka, and whoever the nominee is probably going to win, whether it's Murkowski or Tshibaka, but the factor there is that we could see a three-way race between, say Murkowski wins the GOP nomination, then maybe someone like Elise Galvin runs for the Democrats. It's Algro. It doesn't really matter. I'm just going to say a generic Democrat that I know from Alaska, like Elise Galvin, who ran in 2020 for that House seat. And then we have Tshibaka running as an independent, maybe something like America First Party or, like the Populist Party, because she is endorsed by Trump, and that's going to help her a lot with many conservative voters in Alaska. So that race could get wonky, but for now I'm going to keep it as likely Republican. I guess I will keep Florida and Ohio as likely Republican. These two states could easily be safe just because the Republicans are expected to do so well here. But, other than that, I don't really think that there's too much to say for the likely Republican states. I just want to reiterate that, yes, these states, Florida was pretty close in 2020. Obviously, Biden did worse than expected there, but he still only lost it by 3%. But the reason I think it's so safe, or, likely to go to Republicans is because Marco Rubio in 2016, he won re-election by about 8%. And that Florida is redder now than it was in 2016. Marco Rubio is probably going to do better with Hispanics than he did in 2016. And, if you compare Rubio's performance to Trump, he did better in the Tampa area, like Pinellas County. He won by 3%. Trump lost it by about a point. He won Hillsborough County by about half a percentage point, and in 2020, Trump lost it, by about 7. So I totally understand that, Rubio did better than Trump in some areas, but he's probably going to, do better than Trump nearly everywhere this time around match Trump, because in 2016, he lost Miami-Dade by 11 in 2016, which is the largest county in Florida, by the way. He lost by 11. Clinton won it by 29. So, that was an 18-point shift. So Rubio ran 18% ahead of the ticket in 2016. If he does the same thing in 2020, he'll win Miami-Dade County. And that would be monumental for Florida Republicans, and it just shows that the Florida Democrats are not in a good position at all in this state. So, I think that's going to be it for Florida and Ohio. Now, moving on to our likely Democratic state, that's Colorado. I just do not see too much for Republicans here. If Cory Gardner was running, I think it could have gotten competitive, but since the Republicans did not get that recruit, I just have a hard time in, visualizing a path to victory from them there. Obviously, the last time they won a statewide election in Colorado was 2014, where Cory Gardner did win a Senate race there. But, that was 2014 was a GOP plus 9 year, and they only won it by about 2%, and Gardner ran against a pretty weak incumbent. So a lot of things have to go right for the Republicans in Colorado to win this race, and, it's just not happening for them in Colorado right now. Now, the next state that I want to kind of knock off this list is North Carolina. North Carolina, was originally thought to be a, pretty competitive state, but at this point it just does not look like it's shaping up to be a race that it's going to be too focused, or that either party's going to be too focused on. The Democrats might pour some money into North Carolina because they do have because the Democratic Party does have a tendency to pour money into races that they generally don't because the logic that Democrats ran with in 2020 and 2016 is that if they pour enough money into enough, the Democrats play what I call the wide map strategy. If they play, if they try to win 10 seats, and 6 of those seats are seats that they don't hold, and 5 of those seats are in Trump states, and 4 of those 5 seats are Trump states. Trump won by more than 5, I guess. And, for example, in 2020 they did this. They tried to win Montana, they tried to win Iowa, they tried to win Kansas, they tried to win South Carolina. They even made a play at one point. They were really considering making a play for Alabama if Doug Jones had good polling. He did not. But, they thought they had a chance at Montana, Kansas, Iowa, South Carolina. And they lost all the races by about 10%. And the thought there was that, okay, we may not be favored in these races, but if we pour our money into 4 or 5 races that are not supposed to go our way, one of them flips. None of them flipped, and they wasted a ton of money in states that they ended up losing by 10. Now, in 2022, I don't know what their strategy is, because obviously they're not going to be going on broadcasting their strategy to everyone like me, but they are, you can kind of tell. And it's too early to tell right now, but I think if the Democrats make a play for North Carolina, it narrows up by a little bit, probably, but it's not going to be enough to flip the state by any means, because the polling we have seen shows that nationwide, and remember, North Carolina in 2020 voted about 6% to the right of the country nationwide. Nationwide, voters narrowly seem to be preferring Republicans for congressional offices. Now, both these figures are pretty low. Having a figure as low as 42.4% leading is, concerning for Republicans, but the Democrats, it's way worse for them, because the average year in America, the Democrats are probably favored nationwide by about 3 or 4%, because, as we know, Democrats are the slightly larger and more popular party. But right now they're losing by about 0.6%. And I get we still have a lot, we have a lot of things left to unpack, and we've got a lot more time. And the Democrats do have room to improve. But if they're down by 0.6% nationwide, they're not in a position to be winning North Carolina. They're in a position to be defending a few seats. And North Carolina would not be even in play for them. So I think North Carolina is not going to be that close. I'd be surprised if it gets within 3%. Sherry Beasley for the Democrats, she's a strong candidate. She overperformed Biden in 2020. She has won statewide before. But if the Republicans run Ted Budd, who I'm assuming they're going to run, he should win this election fairly easily. Now, New Hampshire is the next state we're going to get off the list. New Hampshire, I do think, is going to do Maggie Hassan by about 4 or 5%. So in 2020, Biden did really well in New Hampshire, as you can see here. He won the state by about 7%. And he did this, I would say he did this because he really was able to appeal to a lot of college-educated white voters that in 2016 either stayed home or voted for Gary Johnson or maybe even voted for Donald Trump. And he convinced them to come over and vote for him. And in New Hampshire, a state that's, it's smaller, it's small towns of college-educated white voters, that was big for Biden. Now, in 2022, Maggie Hassan's running for re-election. In 2016, she won very narrowly. Like, she did not, she ran behind Clinton, and yeah, it's kind of unfair to say it that way because it makes it sound like she's not a performer when she did unseat an incumbent, Kelly Ayotte, which was a surprise because a lot of people thought Ayotte was going to hold on. And yes, Maggie Hassan right now I do think is favored, but we're going to have to see how well she can do with white voters, because white voters are trending towards Republicans. They're getting more conservative, and in states like New Hampshire that are nearly 90% white, that's going to have a negative effect on Democrats. Now, whether that effect is actually like to the magnitude of what we're seeing in states like Wisconsin or Ohio, I don't know. I don't think it will be personally, but it's always worth noting because Democrats have a tendency to, sleep on these races and then they start to lose them. And so, in 2010, the Democrats lost this very Senate race that Hassan now holds by like 20%. So I would not be surprised if this race gets super close, but for now I do think that Maggie Hassan is going to narrowly hold on. Next state up, Wisconsin. Wisconsin, I forgot to put as likely, by the way. It's really close to being lean. I could see it as lean, and I totally justify that rating, but I'm just going to put it as likely for now. And I say that because with Ron Johnson running for re-election, that allows the GOP to fundraise better. He'll have the incumbency benefit, which is probably, I've discussed this before, but I think when you're an incumbent, you get about a 3 to 4% boost, maybe 5% even if you're super popular. I get that Ron Johnson's not a popular incumbent, but at the same time, he's someone that is very known, I guess, in the state of Wisconsin. And yes, he's got his issues as a candidate. Now, I've written about it before. I've talked about it before. But, he said some things that are going to hurt him. Like, I think that his stance on, whether vaccines are effective, it's not really a good stance to have, both in general and from an electability standpoint, because I think, everyone knows vaccines do work because, like, it's pretty obvious. And also because Wisconsin is a state that's 63% vaccinated and 69%, I guess 63% fully vaccinated against COVID and 69% half vaccinated for COVID. And, obviously if people get the first dose, they're going to get the second dose. So, Wisconsin's a state that is going to be soon probably around 70% fully vaccinated. And if he's running on a position against vaccines, that's not going to help him. Now, that being said, this is a year that's going to favor Republicans. Like, I get that they're up by 0.6% of the generic ballot when they should be like in 2020, Republicans did quite well in the generic ballot. Like, they gained House seats, and they did better in the Senate than expected, and they lost by 3. Right now, they're losing the generic ballot by or winning it by about 0.6. And they're probably going to, polls tend to underestimate Republican support, and, unless the polls swing the other way this year, which they're probably not going to for many reasons that I've written about, and I'll talk about it in a later video, but just, you'll have to take my word for it right now. Polls are highly unlikely to underestimate Republicans this year, or to overestimate Republicans, excuse me. Unless there is a major swing in the polls that puts the Democrats back up by 5% nationwide like they were last year, the Republicans are not in a position to be losing Wisconsin unless something very wrong, or unless something is very wrong there. So Wisconsin, I do think, is going to stay with the Republicans. It's Mandela Barnes as the Democrat is an interesting candidate because I think he does have the ability. I mean, he's not guaranteed, but he has the ability to raise turnout from predominantly black communities in the cities of Milwaukee, in areas like La Crosse, even in areas like Milwaukee. Madison. I got Madison mixed up with Milwaukee, my bad. So I think he can do very well in the urban areas, but Wisconsin's a rural state. It's still predominantly white, and the Democrats are they're a party that is for the most part winning non-white voters tend to vote more Democratic. Now, obviously there are exceptions to that rule, but in the state of Wisconsin, black voters backed Joe Biden by over 65%. Hispanic voters backed Joe Biden, I don't know the exact number, but they were pretty big for him. He won, 70% of Hispanic voters, maybe a little less. And so Democrats are going to do well with voters of color and voters that don't identify as white, but I'm not sure if it's going to be enough in a state that is predominantly white, because if the Republicans keep up what they're doing with rural voters and white working class voters, it's going to be very difficult for Democrats to win Wisconsin in 2022 and even in 2024. Now, Pennsylvania, Georgia, Arizona, Nevada, I think are the 4 states to watch. And I think of these 4, Pennsylvania is the least competitive. So what it looks like, from what we've seen right now, it looks like John Fetterman's going to be the Republican nominee. I mean, Democratic. Did I say Democratic? Okay. John Fetterman's going to be the Democratic nominee in all likelihood. Could that change? Yeah, Connor Lamb obviously is racking up some big endorsements, which obviously could play a role in this campaign. But John Fetterman is a not a good candidate, and I'm going to write about this, by the way. I think I've said that like 3 times, but I'm going to write about this like in the very near future. He is someone that I'm not going to say this officially, but it looks like his campaign is going to implode. I mean, he shows signs of, like, okay, it's hard. This is hard for me to say, I guess, but the issue with John Fetterman is that a lot of Democrats think he can appeal to rural Western Pennsylvanians who are working class, or people who live in the outskirts of Pittsburgh, who are working for fracking companies that have not voted Democrat in 20 years or whatever. Those voters, and Democrats want to win back those voters, and I get that. But they think Fetterman's the guy to do it, and I just don't see that, because Fetterman is a progressive. He supports Medicare for all, and yeah, progressive policies are popular. Like, a wealth tax, I think, a $15 minimum wage passed in Florida, okay? I get that. I'm not oblivious to that. But when U.S., there's difference from having progressive policies and progressive rhetoric. Like, AOC is popular in her district because the district is 80% Democratic. AOC would not do well in a state like Pennsylvania or Wisconsin if she used the rhetoric she uses. Now, if it's a progressive like, Sherrod Brown, who knows how to appeal to working class voters, then I think it's a different story. But Fetterman hasn't showed me that he can appeal to working class voters, which are a major bloc in Pennsylvania, and that's enough to make me think that he's not going to win this race, especially in a year where Republicans are favored. I just do not, I genuinely do not see a path for John Fetterman. Pennsylvania voted, in the election, it voted 5% to the right of the country, okay? That means that as long as Pennsylvania doesn't, magically trend to the left by a lot in 2022, which is not going to happen, the Republicans, all they'd have to do is just, do a little better in the generic ballot, which they're already doing a lot better, and they would win the race. That's, all they have to do. And John Fetterman's not a candidate who's going to be able to outperform the national environment for Democrats. He's just not. I could be proven horribly wrong, but he's never won statewide before. He's lost a primary before, and he has, a candidacy that's going to implode because he does not have a platform that's electable in the state of Pennsylvania. Now, Connor Lamb, on the other hand, I think has a better chance of winning this race. And Connor Lamb is someone that is better because he's won a competitive election. He flipped a Trump plus 20 seat in 2017. He then won re-election in that very seat. He overperformed in 2018. Now, in 2020, he didn't do amazing. He won, obviously, but he didn't, do super well. Lamb is such, people say that Fetterman's better in Western Pennsylvania than Connor Lamb. Lamb is the one who's won in Western Pennsylvania, not John Fetterman, right? And so because of that, it makes me think that Lamb would make this race closer than Fetterman. I'd still take the Republicans in this race over Lamb, but Lamb being a congressman from Western Pennsylvania, I think makes him stronger than Fetterman, who's just a lieutenant governor who is carried by the coattails of Tom Wolfe, to be blunt, to be honest with you. So now the last 3 states. So, all 3 of these states are close. They're all toss-ups in my eyes. Tilts, but I think a lot of people don't it's, actually, I'll give some background. So I always chuckle when, people go after me for saying, this state is tilt whatever. Tilt means toss-up. It's just that I'm not going to leave 3 states as a toss-up because it's not fun. Predicting stuff is fun because it's, hard to do. And, we can talk about North Dakota as much as we want, but it's not going to be as interesting as this race like Arizona or Nevada. So I'm going to give you a prediction for these 3 states, but keep in mind that these are all toss-ups. They could all go either way. I would not be stunned if these races went any way, whether it be Democrats or Republicans, but I'm just going to give you a rating for these states. So, I guess the tipping point here would be the state of Arizona. I do think the Republicans would win Arizona, which could give them the majority. And it's not because Mark Kelly is a bad candidate. In 2020, Biden won Arizona by about 0.3%, and Kelly ran 2% ahead of that. And he's going to run it, Kelly's an overperformer. But when Biden won Arizona by 0.3%, in an environment where he was favored by 4.4% nationwide, that's about a 4% trend to the right relative to the country. Okay, and so if Arizona Arizona's getting bluer, and so maybe it votes 2 or 3% to the right of the country in 2020 or 2022 as opposed to 4% like it did in 2020. But if that happens, the Democrats need to win the popular vote by 2 or 3% nationwide, which could happen. It's not impossible. But it's just not likely given the fact that Republicans are favored to win it by about a point in the polls right now. By the way, I've got him winning it by 4, which is a big difference from an even environment to the GOP winning it by 4. So I personally think that Kelly's going to overperform. Like, Arizona's going to vote 3% to the left of the country in 2022, which is, big because it really shows that Arizona is a state that is trending blue, and Kelly's going to overperform for sure. But the fact that the GOP are doing so well nationwide just is not good for Democrats. And, if Mark Brnovich runs this race, is probably a lean Republican, but he's not going to win the nomination. So since it's Blake Masters, who I think is the worst candidate, I'll put it as tilt. Now, the next closest race, and by the way, Georgia's going to be the closest race. Nevada, I do think the Democrats are going to hold, though. And this is a change from December 2021, where I had Cortez Masto losing re-election and giving this race to Adam Laxalt. I'm going back on that call. Look, this is going to be a tough race. Probably tougher than 2016 for Cortez Masto, because she won by over 2% in 2016. She probably wins by less than a point this time around. Look, Adam Laxalt is not a candidate that I trust to win this race. In 2018, he lost to Steve Sisolak, and the polling we have seen is pretty good for Democrats in Nevada. I get that polls are not always accurate, and I'm not betting on them, but when you're down by as much as Adam Laxalt is down in the polls, it's never a good sign. It makes me think that his campaign is getting, a little sloppy, because Laxalt is kind of running as a typical Trump guy, because Laxalt was big on Trump, and Trump lost Nevada twice. And by the way, Joe. My bad. I totally I coughed while I was talking. So if that doesn't get cut out, my apologies, headphone users. But Joe Biden in Nevada, he won the state by 2.4%. Okay, and he won it, but he didn't campaign there. He didn't make an effort to win the state, and he still won it. So I think Biden's win in Nevada is pretty impressive, considering the fact that he wrote it off. He thought it was safe, and he was like, "Oh yeah, we only won it by 2." He got cocky, and Trump cared about it more than Biden did, and he narrowed the gap. If Biden actually campaigned in Nevada, he probably would have won it by more. And by the way, I think COVID really hurt Democrats in Nevada, because it took away their ability to campaign in Vegas, and 85% of the population in Nevada lives in the Vegas metro area. So that really really hurt Democrats. Now, in 2022, obviously, COVID is still going to be an issue, but the Democrats in Nevada are going to be able to campaign more, and they're going to be able to boost Hispanic turnout, because Hispanic turnout in Nevada in 2020 was not that great for Democrats. I saw an exit poll in Nevada. I remember on election night thinking that the Democrats were probably going to lose a House seat in Nevada because of Hispanic turnout, and they're very lucky they didn't, because Joe Biden did not do that well in Nevada. And so Cortez Masto, I do think is going to do better than Biden with Hispanics. I think she's going to, do about the same, maybe a little worse in the suburbs of Las Vegas. And she probably just, her doing better with Hispanics and better in the city of Las Vegas is just enough to give her the win. Laxalt's probably going to do better in Washoe. He's probably going to do better in Henderson, Paradise, Las Vegas, Enterprise, those cities surrounding Las Vegas. But in the urban areas themselves, and with Hispanic voters, I just think Cortez Masto does well enough to win the state. So I think that's it for Nevada. Georgia's really close. I could really see it going either way. But I'm going to give it to the Republicans, and I say this for a few reasons. So first of all, Herschel Walker is a bad candidate, and he has allegations of domestic abuse that are probably going to hurt him a lot on the campaign trail. But Georgia voted 4% to the right of the country in 2020. And Raphael Warnock, I do not think that he's an amazing incumbent. He's not a bad incumbent, by any means, but he's not in a great position to win re-election. He won in the 2021 runoffs because he ran against a very bad incumbent for the Republicans, and because he had all the momentum with him. Warnock was swept in by January 2021 was probably the best month for Democrats since 2012. Literally. They just won the presidential election. They won the Georgia runoffs, and the limited polling we had at the time showed us that nationwide Democrats are much more popular last year than they are now. And so that makes me think that if Warnock could only win by 2 in that environment, he's not going to win again. Kelly Loeffler was a bad candidate. She's probably the same as Herschel Walker. They're bad for different reasons. Walker's going to do better in the rural areas, but Loeffler probably does better in the suburbs. And so they're both bad candidates in terms of electability. And so I get that, but Democrats are are like 10% probably less popular now than they were in January 2021 when Warnock won by 2%. So I'm thinking that it's just like he'll do better than a lot. Like Georgia House Democrats are probably going to lose the popular vote in the state of Georgia, like in the House elections by 5%. And Warnock's going to do better than them because they'd run against such a bad candidate. But the fact that the national environment is just so good for Republicans right now is just not convincing me that Warnock's going to win re-election. It's going to be close. I can really see Warnock pulling it out, especially because of Walker's flawed candidacy. But I'm just not seeing a path to victory for Walker right now where, if the national environment favors Republicans by 5%, okay, let me put this in perspective. In 2016, Georgia voted 7% to the right of the country. In 2018, Georgia voted 11% to the right of the country. Now, in 2020, it voted 4% to the right of the country. So, when you exclude blue wave midterms, Georgia, generally speaking, has trended, in 2012, by the way, it voted 12% to the right of the country. So Georgia, gets about 4 or 5% bluer every presidential election cycle. In midterms, it's a little different, but I think Georgia is going to vote more to the left of the national environment in 2022 than it did in 2020. So it's getting bluer. But a national environment that Republicans are winning by 5% is one where they're winning Michigan. Minnesota's probably really competitive, and they're making a play for New Hampshire and Maine. So that alone is just enough for me to say, okay, well, if Maine and Michigan had center race, the Democrats would be in even more trouble than they are now. Because in a map where Democrats are narrowly holding Minnesota and probably losing Michigan by 3%, they're not winning Georgia, no matter how bad the Republican candidate there is. So I know this has been a long video. I'm tired of talking. I bet you're tired of listening to my monotonous voice after 27 minutes of this. But yeah, that's it. That's my prediction for right now. Be sure to comment down below what you think is going to happen. Tag me on Twitter. Follow me on Twitter @UAP_YouTube. That's my @ for all social media. Just really Twitter and Instagram. I'm not on other social media on this platform, as this channel. Those are my two channel associated social medias you can follow me on. So yeah, thanks for watching this video, and I'll see you all in the next episode. Bye.